going to explain a little bit about the bandsaw and how to use it safely in the shop. As you can see, the blade is about 3/8 of an inch wide, which makes it very versatile and handy for doing curved cuts. The bandsaw is a great tool to cross-cut with or to rip with. We can also stand the piece of wood up and we could actually resaw it in half and open it up like a book. The bandsaw is very easy to use as you don't have to worry a lot about kickback. The wood remains stable on the big steel table because all the force is pushing that piece of wood straight down onto the table. Our biggest worry with the bandsaw is the blade. We must always make sure that we leave that blade guide about 1/4 of an inch above the thickness of the wood. So to adjust it, we just loosen this, drop the blade guide to about 1/4 of an inch, and snug it up. Before you use the bandsaw, make sure you have received and understood the instructions. That means you've completed the safety test and scored 100%. You must wear eye protection when you're using the bandsaw. Remember that your eyes are the most vulnerable part of your body. Make sure you pay complete attention to what you're doing on the bandsaw. Don't talk to a neighbor and don't let anybody else talk to you while you're working. You have to make sure that when you're pushing a piece of wood through the bandsaw that your hands are never in line with the blade. If I was going to cross-cut this piece of wood, I'd want to make sure that my thumbs are not in like this. I always want to tuck my thumbs in if I can, and I always want to keep my fingers at least 2 inches away from the blade at all times. You never want to get in the habit of clearing the table of scraps or debris with your hands. You could use a scrap piece of wood to brush it off, but the best thing is just to grab a shop brush and clean that table off after the blade has stopped. Be sure to make all adjustments to the machine before you start it. The different adjustments you can make are, you can adjust the height of the blade guide depending on the height of your work, and you can also tilt this table as well to any angle that you want for a complex cut. After you are finished working, you want to make sure that you lower the blade guide and turn the machine off before you leave it. Down below me here, there's a foot brake, and I can actually pump that foot brake to allow the blade to stop. You never want to cut round stock with the bandsaw. If you're cutting a piece of material 2 or 3 inches in diameter through the blade, it could actually spin right out of your hands and or damage the blade. Make sure the bandsaws come to a complete stop before you leave it. You never want to stand to the right of the machine, right here. If the blade was to break, it could come out through this opening right here, and it could snake out the table. If the blade breaks, or you're confused on what to do, make sure you shut the machine off and just call the instructor over. You never want to back out of curved cuts. When you back out of a cut, the blade is no longer supported, and it could pull it off the wheel. Now, I'll just show you what it looks like inside. There's some adjustment knobs here. This one is for the blade tension, so if you're changing a blade, you will need to release the blade tension. This one is for blade tracking. You never want to adjust these knobs without checking with me first. Let's have a look how this bandsaw works, and I'll show you what the blade guides and what the bearing is for. In between the blade you can see the blade guides, and those keep a little bit of tension on the blade so that if it does twist, it stays nice and straight. In behind you can see a roller bearing, and the roller bearing only spins when a piece of wood is being pushed through the machine and it gets pushed back onto that roller bearing. If I wanted to cut a semicircle out of this piece of wood, like that, I would want to make a few relief cuts into the wood first. And let's do a couple more, just for fun. There we go. Now let's try this curve. Now don't be tempted to grab those pieces. Wait for the saw to stop before you move them. After the blade stopped, make sure you lower the blade guide. And now you can retrieve your pieces and you can put them into the recycling box. Grab your piece and now you can tell what your next procedure is probably going to be, and that's going to be to head over to the spindle sander. But that'll be for another day. Thanks for watching.